Alma דיברה חירותי ואמליך מפרותי ויצמחו כנראה נשית. בחיי כל יום לכל ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב עמו. אשת חיל מאמצע ורחוק מפני מכרה שקר אכן ואבל יופי אישה כיבודה. Odette,
Back Rosa.
בת רוזה. רוח אדוני תניחנה בגן עדן. תתפתה מן
So thank you all for being here and for the outpouring of love and support over the past month. My mom enjoyed coming to B'nai Harayim. She felt at home here and embraced by my dad, who was a founder. She was also very fond of Haron Abraham. My mother's name was Odette. Her grandchildren called her Odie. She was our Odie and she was my Odie. I gave her the nickname. It's hard to believe that I'm speaking about her in the past tense. She said Odie was also the name her father called her in Basra, Iraq, where she was born and lived until December 1949, when her family immigrated to London. There she learned to drive a stick shift car and enjoyed attending classical music concerts, chaperoned, of course. She had learned to play the piano when she was in Basra. My grandfather approved of my mom marrying my dad, having not met him, but by knowing the family name. That was common then. My mom was a woman of classic style, quiet, shy, private, and strong. Her shyness was sometimes misinterpreted as snobby, but if you knew her, you knew she was just shy. She was reasonable and understated and didn't like to do things that drew attention to herself. As my cousin's wife, Iris, said, she was a tiny woman, but a giant of a person. Odie outlived my dad by almost 15 years and had to figure out life on her own, a role she had not prepared for. When we moved my parents to Great Neck in 2007, she had to learn how to back her car into a parking spot in her building's garage and get used to an electric stove, having cooked using a gas stove for decades. Both challenging tasks for a then 79-year-old who had been diagnosed with macular degeneration. She rose to the occasion as she had with other challenges throughout her life. I watched closely and grew to appreciate and see her differently than I had allowed myself to see her when I was younger. As my dad's health deteriorated, she heroically managed his care at home. At the end of his life, she said to him, "You're worried about me, aren't you? Don't worry, I'm going to be okay." And she was. I remember saying to her sometime after his death that people think you're easygoing, but you really aren't. You just appear that way compared to Daddy. Mommy began her married life in Hackensack, New Jersey in October 1956. She arrived the day before Halloween, October 30th, and the next day my dad said something like, "When the doorbell rings, just give the kids candy." An unusual intro to life in America. My dad bought her a green car with indicators that would come down on the right and left sides when signaling a turn. It was the funniest thing. I remember being picked up from elementary school with that green car. She couldn't get over the fact that in the suburbs of New Jersey, some women went to the supermarket with curlers in their hair. She dressed me and my sisters in stylish clothes, and I remember her braiding my then long hair with pretty colorful ribbons. When I was a child, she would be in the kitchen listening to Lloyd Moss, the host of WQXR, the classical music station, while preparing dinner. There was a time she used to set the table with small glasses of tomato juice or have an appetizer of half a grapefruit cut with a cherry on top or some other savory starter. She would say, "The eyes eat," and she made it look attractive and easy. I didn't appreciate the work involved until I tried to do it myself. During the summer, we would go to London to visit her family. She would buy outfits for all of her nieces and nephews and dresses for her mother. She had an innate sense of knowing what would look good on someone by looking at them. This skill made her particularly good in sales. She worked in an evening gown shop when I was 12, a fur salon after that, and then later on a dress sportswear boutique during the late 80s and early 90s. She found a way to get along with all sorts of people. At Andrea Lawrence, the evening gown shop, one of the women she worked with, one of the Jewish women she worked with, asked her where she went to shul. Her response was, "Shul? What is shul?" Clearly not a familiar word to her. When she heard about Lincoln Center Theater membership through her friendship, with Mildred, one of the owners of the first salon she worked at, she encouraged Viv and I to become members. And more than 35 years later, we still are. Mommy was tested early in her married life when her first child, my older sister Yvette, was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 4. Knowing Yvette's death was imminent, she bravely went on to have a third child so that I wouldn't be alone. After my sister Viv was born, she said, it was one of the best decisions she ever made. I am grateful for my sister Viv. My dad wanted to name Viv Colette to continue the rhyme of Odette, Yvette, and Annette. Can you imagine? But Mom put her foot down and Colette became Viv's middle name. She possessed an elegant sense of style and prided herself in maintaining it throughout her life. She had a passion for clothes, was good at sewing, crocheting, knitting. She had a keen sense of design and seen in many of her beautiful, unique pieces she knitted over the years and proudly wore. She designed her own wedding dress. She loved necklaces, brooch pins, scarves, and would hang some of them together with different outfits in her closet so they were ready to wear, a very efficient system. When I was in high school, I remember being late one morning for my U.S. history class. My teacher spoke to me after class, and I told her I had had an argument with my mom because I wanted to wear one of her tops, which was why I was late. After meeting my mom at parent-teacher conferences that quarter, Miss Abrahamson said to me, I can understand why you'd want to wear your mom's clothes. My mom and I didn't always get along, especially when I was younger. She was fearful and anxious and would often say no to things I wanted to do. Later, she would tell me she was glad I didn't listen and did them anyway. We didn't shop well together as mother and daughter typically do until much later in life. And she wasn't one to teach me her excellent cooking skills. Sorry, Dan. To be fair, I didn't show much of an interest. Mommy remained in contact to this day with Ginger, her next door neighbor in Hackensack of more than 40 years. They moved into their house in 1963 around the same time we moved into ours. We grew to love their family and they ours. She encouraged me to take tennis lessons, drove Viv to piano lessons, made sure I learned to swim, something she hadn't learned to do herself. We have film footage of her riding a bicycle in Nantucket when I was a child, photos of her on skis with her brother Mosey, and she used to go bowling with Ginger. When I was a teenager, my parents had me choose wallpaper for my bedroom. When I made my choice of bright pink and orange flowers, they tried to talk me out of it and then agreed to put it on one wall. Fast forward to many years later, they redid my old bedroom. At Hanukkah time, when my kids were young, my mom gave them their gifts and then handed me a gift wrap tube. She had saved a piece of that wallpaper when it was taken down and presented it to me. It took me back in time. It was so funny. One of the caregivers we had for her over this past year would text me when she was leaving. In September, she texted me what they did that day and ended it with, she is cute and funny, Mommy Odette. She used to enjoy taking the bus to New York City and walk the streets window shopping, particularly the windows of Saks and Bergdorf's. She would meet a childhood friend, Joyce, from Basra, whose family immigrated to the New York area. Joyce's older sister, Claire, and Mommy ended up living in the same building in Great Neck, 1 Kensington Gate, in their later years, and rekindled their friendship that had begun at the age of 5 in Basra. Imagine that. Mommy had a keen sense about people and made it clear with a word or a look which of our friends she approved of and which ones she didn't. I used to complain that my friends could stay out later than I could and were allowed to do things I wasn't. Her response was, compared to how I grew up, you have a lot of freedom. If she saw something that she didn't like that I said or did with my children, she would let me know. She was protective in her own subtle way over all of us. She nurtured an orchid garden in her dining room. The number of orchids kept growing as we all started to bring our orchids to her. I noticed a couple of years ago that one of mine was missing, and she said it didn't look good, and Viv threw it away. I was so upset because I knew it would regenerate. When she saw this, she changed her story and said, I threw it away, not Viv. She was protecting my relationship with my sister. Odie was tolerant. In 7th grade, I experimented with making ice cream soda candles in her kitchen. She came home to find the kitchen with thick smoke in the air from melting wax without using a double boiler. Although I do not remember exactly what happened afterwards, I remember I continued making candles in her kitchen. When mom was about 85, I accompanied her to her annual physical. The only reason she agreed to go was that the doctor would not renew the one blood pressure pill she was taking without an annual visit. The doctor noted she had not had a mammogram for a long time. She calmly responded, "And if you found anything, what were you going to do about it?" She was practical and sensible in her self-care. I watched, listened, and learned. When I was in middle school, she brought me to Manhattan for my birthday. We spent the day going to the Museum of Modern Art and then on to 8th Street in the Village so I could shop for a purple suede handbag I wanted. While my mom was living in Great Neck, on Thursday evenings, there was a program on Channel 13 called New York City Arts. It would talk about the latest events, exhibitions, performances, and artists, and we would watch it and call each other to discuss something we thought was interesting. If I forgot, she would remind me or call afterwards and vice versa. When she was more able and energetic, I would bring her to the city to see different museum exhibits I knew she would like. We did the same in London when we were there at the same time. She traveled with us to Rome in 2016 for my cousin Karen's daughter Nat's wedding, and then went to Portugal 2 years later at the age of 90 to Karen's other daughter Danielle's wedding. She was a star and a trooper. During the many weekends Danny and I would spend in Great Neck over the past dozen years or so, he visiting his dad, me visiting my mom, I referred to her as my weekend roommate. I would look for outings we could do. Her knee-jerk reaction was always to say no. When I would not relent, she would give in and was happy she went. She would say, "The thing I dislike about you is that you push me." And in the same breath, she would add, "And the thing I love about you is that you push me." There was a time in Mom's later life that she was weather-centric, so much so, if Adina would ask me what it was going to be like outside, I would say, "Call Odie." There was a well-known meteorologist on TV, you may remember, called Storm Field. Well, I nicknamed Mommy Storm Odie. She loved her son-in-laws, Danny and Nick. I used to joke and say, if Danny and I ever split, I know whose side she would take and it wouldn't be mine. She was happy to see that Dean and Aaron found loving partners in Adam and Shay. She was so proud of all her grandchildren, Adina, Aaron, Samantha, Noah, Michael, Ryan, who she saw often. They treated her with love and care, and she would often say how lucky she was. I like to believe that a part of her lives on in all of us. Danny's dear friend Derlise wrote to me after Mom died and said, "You have two beautiful grandsons who will reflect your mother's light." My mom left this world peacefully at home, just as she would have wanted. Viv was not there yet, and I had just left. Nita was with her. My sister said, "She waited for you to leave, and she knew I wasn't there yet." I thought we were the ones watching over her. Perhaps she was still the one taking care of us by not wanting us to see her take her last breath. Odie lived a long, healthy, good life, and I grew to appreciate and admire her strength through a completely different lens. I am grateful I was given that time.
Please, this way.
Attending the class.
Okay. Good evening.
Now louder.
Let me get the word out. Okay. Good evening. Tonight I'm standing here not just for myself.
You can do it. You can do it, Sam. I know you can.
Okay. Tonight I'm not just standing here for myself, but for my brothers as well. Noah, Michael, and Ryan. Well, Noah and Michael couldn't be here in person, but their love and memories of Odie are woven into every word I say. This speech is from all of us. The bond between the grandmother and grandchild is one of life's greatest gifts. It's a relationship built on unconditional love, gentle guidance, and endless generosity. Odie was the embodiment of all these things and so much more. She had a way of making everyone feel special, as if we were her favorite, even though we knew she loved all her grandchildren equally. When thinking about how to describe Odie and what she meant to us, I kept coming back to a book that our dad read to us when we were kids, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. For those who don't know, it's a story of a tree that gives everything it has to a boy it loves, simply because it finds joy in making him happy. Odie was our giving tree. She gave her time, love, and endless support to each of us without ever asking for anything in return. She was always there, whether it was making us laugh with her quick wit or delighting in her good fortune during a game of backgammon. Odie was the happiest when we were all together, even if she was not a part of a conversation. She would sit quietly and smile at everyone. I truly believe that in those moments, seeing us all together brought her a deep sense of pride and joy. Even in her later years, she made every effort to join us for family gatherings. We set her up heat lamps so she could sit comfortably outside in cooler weather, and in the winter, we all crowded together by the fireplace to ensure we could share those precious moments in the same room. Her presence was the heart of every gathering, reminding us of how lucky we all are to have such an amazing family. A few years ago, Noah and I participated in the Sephardic Fellowship, where we created a project to teach others about Sephardic traditions. From the moment we received the assignment, we knew exactly what we wanted to do. We decided to make a short documentary about Odie's extraordinary life, a life that was a testament to courage, strength, and resilience. Through interviews, photos, and stories, we captured her journey, beginning with her birth in Basra, Iraq, and her childhood shaped by the vibrant yet precarious Jewish community there. We learned about her immigration to London after the Farhud, the devastating program that uprooted so many Jewish families, and her life with our grandfather, Papa, how they built a home filled with love, tradition, and family. The documentary became more than just a project. It was a way for us to connect with Odie, to understand the struggles she faced and the legacy she worked so hard to pass down to us. Sitting with her, listening to her recount these moments, and seeing her pride in her family's story gave us an even greater appreciation for the remarkable woman she was. When it comes to family values, Odie's strength and unwavering devotion set an example for the rest of us. She reminded us to find joy in the simplest moments, whether it was sharing a meal around the table, laughing at a story for the 10th time, or sitting together in comfortable silence. These small, everyday moments brought our family closer together, creating memories we now treasure in our hearts. My siblings and I each have our own special memories with Odie, moments that truly capture the essence of who she was and the boundless love she gave. For Noah, it's her love for her orchids, which he now has one of hers and cares for one of hers that is about to bloom and hopefully will have 8 flowers, just like hers did. For Michael, it's the countless games of backgammon they played together. Odie taught him how to play when he was young, and over the years, it became a game that he associated with no matter who was playing. They had an ongoing bet, and both of them, being competitive people, meant they always kept track, Odie always being ahead. Every time Michael offered to pay his debt, instead of asking for the money, Odie would smile and say, "Let's go out for ice cream together instead." For Ryan, For Ryan, it's the memory of the last big hug they shared, a hug filled with warmth and love that he will carry with it forever. And for me, it's the way she was always there, eager to hear from me and make sure I was okay and happy. She had a way of making me feel completely seen and cared for, no matter what was going on in her life. These memories, though different for each of us, are all bound by the same thread. The incredible love that Odie gave so freely, and the way she made each of us feel cherished. I need another tissue. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, I'm almost done. I treasure the bond we shared every day. I feel lucky to wear the clothes that Odie not only wore but made by hand. Even more special is the necklace that I gave her while I was in Israel. One side it says, the meaning of family is that you will love and be loved for the rest of your life. And on the other it says our names. She wore it every day, never taking it off, and now I do the same, to always carry a piece of her love and memory with me. It reminds me that even though she is no longer here physically, her presence and love will always be with me, guiding me and wrapping me in the warmth of her care, just like she always did. On behalf of my brothers and me, Odie, thank you for everything. Thank you for the laughter, the lessons, and the love that knew no bounds. We miss you more than words can ever express. The ache of your absence is profound, but as the song Dancing in the Sky so beautifully reminds us, we find solace in imagining you in a place as radiant and serene as you deserve. A place filled with light, joy, and peace. We hope you are dancing up in heaven as graceful and full of life as you always were. We can almost see you there, surrounded by love and light, moving effortlessly to a melody that echoes the joy and love you gave us every day. Until we meet again, your memory will live on in everything we do. It will be there in the stories we tell, the traditions we keep, and the moments of laughter and love that connect our family. Though you are no longer here physically, your spirit will forever guide us, wrapping us in the warmth of your presence and reminding us of the incredible legacy you left behind. We will honor you in the way we live, love, and give to one another, just as you taught us. We love you, Odie, and you will forever be in our hearts.
I'll be shorter. First, I want to acknowledge, of course, all of you for coming here. All of you for coming here. I want to especially thank you very much for all you've done. I want to also acknowledge Rabbi Vadia and his wife for coming here. He has agreed to do Kaddish for Odette and for my dad. That's a really big thing for us. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So, Odie to me. Odie was elegant. That is the word every time from the moment I met her, before I knew Nanette, until all the way through. Elegant with grace. Even at night, she had a beautiful little cute nightgown that she would wear. I mean, it was elegant. I can tell you. She's also very talented, right? You heard little things. She played the piano. She loved to dance. I mean, Salim, her husband, did not like to dance as much. So whenever possible, she would pull me in, and we would be doing all the dancing together, which is great because I love to dance, and she was quite good. She was also a great cook. She did sewing and dressmaking and knitting, as you've all heard. Also, she was, I think when I think of her, I think of courageous. So she came to the U.S. alone. She married without even knowing her husband, Sal. Turned out to be a wonderful guy. She lost a child at an early age. Then decided to have another. Then at some point she lost her husband, Sal, and she survived that, which was really amazing because playing the role she had played all along, which is the person that stood behind him and really brought him to a level of I don't know, reasonableness. And all of a sudden, without him there, she managed with support to really do very well for many years. She loved her family. You heard. She loved all of us. We always felt like we were in the right place with her. She was great and at giving calming advice. So she spoke to our kids. Sometimes she spoke to us, but especially with kids, the grandchildren, she was terrific. And I would say she was I would describe her as a go with the flow type of woman. She was a peacemaker, and she was not an agitator, always, and therefore she was easy to take along. Whenever we would go on trips, she would typically come with us. She went with us to Florida, California, Canada, London, Portugal, Italy, and she was great to take along with her. Can you imagine somebody so much older, never stopping us from doing everything that we needed to do? And it was always a pleasure. One last little story I'd tell you, that we would joke around a lot. And one of the things, when she started to lose her eyesight, she had this flip phone, and rather than dialing the numbers, she had these shortcuts, 1, 2, 3. Each one would be a different person. Like number 1 was Vivian, I think. Number 2 was Nanette. Down the line, I asked her what the numbers were, and Nick, my brother-in-law, he was number 5. And she had me all the way at 7. And I'd argue with her, like, what is it that I can do to maybe, my number? She said, no, we're keeping it like this. And this kept on going over and over. It was just a very funny thing, just to say that she was light, and that was really terrific. So we'll really, really, really miss her. Again, thank you all for being here with us, supporting me.
Odie was my last grandparent, who I got the chance to know for 33 years. I thought she would live forever, but as she said, no one lives forever. Such an amazing and inspiring woman. She was one of my role models. She would have us over every Friday night dinner for when I was a kid, cooking her famous fish and lasagna. We would speak every day, and she would end her calls with, "I love you, sweetheart. We'll talk soon, okay?" She would also call me anytime. She would also say, "Call me anytime if you need anything, okay?" When I was a child, we would bake baba and kaak together. She played all sorts of games with Aaron and I, like backgammon, chess, chutes and ladders. She was known for her flower magic, as you've heard, just talking and taking care of everybody's orchids. She would sit there and talk to the flowers and bring them back to life. One story that I have of that is when I found out that I was pregnant, I brought her an orchid that had died. And when it was time for me to finally have my child, the orchid blossomed and was full of flowers. And it was so meaningful to me. And I'm so appreciative for all the care that she took of that. We've taken so many trips together, from our yearly trips to Florida and Montauk. I also traveled with her to Ireland and London. She also came with us to Portugal at the age of 90, which was her last plane ride. She was at my high school and college graduation, my wedding, and most recently, my son Arya's bris. The last thing she told me was, I love you. I feel so lucky to have had her around for as long as I did. I love you, Odette.